At 6 in the morning, in broad daylight, not under the cover of night, like every strike before it, the United States military opened fire on a piece of land smaller than most golf courses. No skyline, no population worth mentioning, and for 90 straight minutes, American precision munitions tore into it without stopping. Why would anyone burn 90 minutes of a war machine's time on a rock that small? Because that rock might be the single most fought-over patch of Earth on the planet right now, and by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why. It's called Greater Tunb Island. You've probably heard the name in the last few days without knowing what it actually means. So let's fix that, properly, from the ground up. Before we get into what's happening right now, you need 3 numbers. 21 miles, that's the width of the Strait of Hormuz at its narrowest point, the only sea route in or out of the Persian Gulf. 20% the share of the entire world's oil and gas that normally moves through that gap every single day. And 0, the number of alternate routes if this strait shuts down. There's no pipeline, no canal, no plan B. If Hormuz closes, the global energy market doesn't adjust, it panics. Now place 3 tiny islands directly across that choke point: Greater Tunb, Lesser Tunb, Abu Musa. Iran has controlled them since 1971, seized by force just 2 days before the United Arab Emirates was even founded as a country, which is why the UAE has spent over 50 years formally objecting to an occupation it never recognized. Diplomats wrote letters for 5 decades. Iran, meanwhile, was busy building. Over those same 50 years, these islands stopped being disputed rocks and became something else entirely: hardened radar sites, coastal missile batteries, small boat launch points, air defense coverage stretching across the entire strait. Iranian commanders had a phrase for them: unsinkable aircraft carriers. Ones that can't be sunk because they were never floating to begin with. They're bedrock, dug in, permanent, waiting. Here's the part most coverage skips entirely. Iran's whole approach to controlling the strait was never about winning a naval battle against the US Navy in open water. Nobody in Tehran believed that fight was winnable. The real doctrine was quieter and arguably smarter: uncertainty as a weapon. Iran didn't need to sink a supertanker, it needed every insurance underwriter in London and every tanker captain in the Gulf to believe it could. Push premiums high enough, and shipping companies make the decision for you, they simply stop coming. No missile fired, and the strait still closes. This is where the so-called mosquito fleet comes in. And it matters because it's the thread connecting everything we're about to cover. Iran built up thousands of small, fast attack boats, some capable of 60, 70, even reportedly higher speeds, armed with rockets, machine guns, and in some configurations, mines. Individually, none of them threatens a US destroyer. That was never the point. The point was swarming, a dozen or more boats converging on a single tanker from different directions at once, faster than any single warship can process and respond to. Death by 1,000 cuts, refined over 4 decades since the tanker skirmishes of the 1980s. For years, this arrangement more or less held a tense but stable standoff. Then, in February 2026, everything broke. The United States and Israel launched coordinated strikes inside Iran, targeting senior Iranian leadership. Iran's response was immediate and absolute. It declared the Strait of Hormuz closed to all foreign shipping. Warnings went out over open radio channels. Ships that didn't turn back were boarded, harassed, in some cases attacked outright. Within weeks, daily tanker traffic collapsed from over 100 vessels to a trickle. Oil prices, which had been sitting comfortably, started climbing hard. That standoff is exactly what set up the moment we're really here to talk about. Because after months of an on-again, off-again crisis, the United States decided the islands themselves had to go not just be pressured, but struck directly, in daylight. A detail that matters far more than it sounds. Because up to that point, every single American strike in this campaign had come under cover of night. What happened next, over roughly 1 week in mid-July, involved 3 separate strike waves in a single day. The American military's first ever combat use of autonomous sea drones, and a 10 Warthogs Cold War-era tank killers repurposed to hunt speedboats at wave-top altitude over open water. That's where this story actually turns into something historic. And I'm not exaggerating when I say, Part 2 covers a moment that military analysts are already calling a genuine turning point in how naval warfare works. So, if you want the full picture, the sea drones, the robot boats, the Warthogs, all of it, hit subscribe now and turn on notifications, because Part 2 drops next and you will not want to miss it. Drop a comment below telling me what you think the US does next. Let's get into it. The 12th of July, 2026. Bandar Abbas Naval Base, Iran's most important naval installation, sitting right on the Strait of Hormuz, the operational home of the IRGC Navy. And on that date, the United States did something it had never done in its entire history. 3 unmanned surface vessels, Corsair Sea drones, no crew on board, no support ship nearby, navigated straight into the harbor and struck a submarine maintenance facility. No pilot risked, no sailor exposed, just machines, moving on their own, into the heart of enemy territory. Central Command released footage the next day, shot from inside one of the drones during its final approach. A yellow maintenance gantry, an Iranian submarine hanging in a sling, pulled completely out of the water for repairs. The image grows larger and larger as the drone closes in, and then the screen goes black. Here's the detail that should genuinely unsettle you. It isn't publicly known whether a human operator gave the final order to strike, or whether the drone's own system made that call. That question, did a machine decide, on its own, to attack a military target in real combat, is one of the most consequential open questions in modern warfare. And it just happened, quietly, at a naval base most people can't find on a map. These aren't experimental toys either. The company behind them went from unveiling a prototype to a $392 million US Navy production contract in about a year. Over 300 units built by mid-2026, range of 1,000 nautical miles, 1,000 pounds of payload, sitting low in the water, nearly invisible to radar, needing no crew at all. 3 were sent on this mission specifically so that even if 1 or 2 got intercepted, the target would still be destroyed. That submarine will not be returning to service. Military analysts have already drawn the obvious comparison. Ukraine did something similar to Russia's Black Sea Fleet starting in 2022, using cheap sea drones to push a much larger navy out of its own waters. The US watched that campaign closely. This is the American answer to it, except built at military scale, with a production contract behind it, and now, combat-proven. And every country with a coastline just learned the same lesson at once. China watched this. Russia watched this. It doesn't matter how far inland your submarine pens are from open ocean. If a drone can travel 1,000 nautical miles on its own and make its own targeting decisions, distance stopped being the protection it used to be. But the sea drones weren't the only shift. The battlefield, as the chairman of the Joint Chiefs put it publicly, is moving closer to the water's surface, and the aircraft, the US, sent to prove it is almost comically old school. A 10 Warthogs, Cold War tank killers built around a single idea: get low, get close, and don't die easily. Now they're flying at wave-top altitude over the Strait of Hormuz, hunting Iran's fast attack speedboats with a 30mm cannon that fires nearly 4,000 rounds a minute. At that altitude, a pilot can actually tell a fishing boat from an armed IRGC craft something no high-flying jet or long-range missile can do. Apache helicopters are flying the same hunt, using Hellfire missiles against the smaller, harder-to-see threats. Put it together, and you get something the Mosquito fleet has never had to face before. Drones striking bases with no risk to American lives, and low-altitude gunships hunting individual boats one by one. It's not one big knockout blow. It's a slow, methodical dismantling of every layer Iran spent decades building. And that same week, the US backed up its blockade with something impossible to ignore. Hellfire missiles fired directly into the smokestack of a tanker that tried to run it. The ship didn't sink. It didn't need to. The message reached every other captain in the Gulf within hours. So here's the question everyone actually cares about. Islands struck. A submarine destroyed by robot boats. Warthogs hunting speedboats at wave-top altitude. A tanker disabled. To prove the blockade is real, that's an enormous amount of firepower thrown at one 21-mile stretch of water in under 2 weeks. Does it actually work? Start with the math, because the math is brutal. Before this war, roughly 110 ships moved through the Strait of Hormuz every single day, carrying about a fifth of the world's oil and gas. That number has collapsed to a fraction of what it was. Brent crude jumped from around $70 a barrel to well past $86 in a matter of days. And it's not just fuel, fertilizer costs, shipping insurance, food prices, all of it rides on the same 21 miles of water. Billions of people who will never learn the name Greater Tunb are already paying for what's happening there. Here's the uncomfortable truth though, and it's one worth sitting with. You cannot bomb your way to a fully solved Mosquito fleet problem. Iran's fast boats don't sit in one place waiting to be struck. They hide among sea caves, coral reefs, and thousands of tiny islets along the southern coast, the exact same terrain that protected them during the tanker skirmishes of the 1980s. You can't preemptively strike a cave you don't know has a boat in it. And once a dozen-plus boats launch at 90 knots from multiple directions, the window to stop them before they reach a tanker is measured in minutes, not hours. U.S. intelligence assessments, even after weeks of continuous strikes, suggest Iran still holds onto roughly half of its pre-war fast attack fleet. Degraded? Yes. Eliminated? No. This was a fleet built from the start to be scattered, hidden, and hard to kill in exactly this kind of campaign, which is why the strategy isn't one knockout blow, it's layers, stacked on top of each other. Strike the islands, and the radar coverage watching the strait goes dark. Hit Bandar Abbas with sea drones, and the submarines that provided a deeper threat can't be repaired and returned to service. Send Warthogs and Apaches low over the water, and the boats themselves have nowhere left to hide once they launch. Enforce the blockade with a hellfire into a smokestack, and every captain in the region recalculates the risk before they ever leave port. None of these alone reopens the strait. Together, they're designed to make Iran's ability to threaten shipping cost more than it's worth. And that's really the number worth watching going forward, not missile counts, not island names, but Iran's own calculation. Its naval commander was assassinated. Its island fortresses are in ruins. Its submarine fleet just lost an asset to a machine with no human aboard. The blockade is reportedly costing Iran something like $500 million a day, and yet Iran is still launching missiles at U.S. bases in Bahrain, Kuwait, and Jordan, still claiming hits on tankers in the strait. That tells you everything about how Tehran currently values this fight. They think holding on, even in a badly degraded state, is still worth the cost of absorbing American strikes. Whether that calculation breaks, and how much more it takes to break it, is the actual story to watch from here. Not the headlines about a single strike, but whether the pressure ever adds up to the one thing that matters: ships moving through that strait again, at anything close to normal. That's the full picture. 3 parts, no filler. If this series actually helped you understand what's happening better than the headlines did, that's the whole point of doing it this way. Let me know in the comments what you want covered next, because this story is far from over.